Welcome to JC Connect. Yesterday we were discussing about the earnest money deposit and the security deposit. So, of course, the earnest money deposit is utilized during the tendering process, and during the tendering process, if any drawbacks happens from the tender person who is applying it, then the tender that's earnest money deposit cannot be given back to the tendering person. And the security deposit is when it is going to award the tenders, so then some 5 to 10% of the estimated cost of the project will be kept for as a security deposit for successful implementation of any of the project. So then once suppose if the contractor, if he is unable to um, complete or furnish that project successfully, then that they will take that security deposit and they are going to complete that project. Of course, during taking this security deposit, the quantity as well as the quality has to be maintained properly. Then we will move on to the qualification of the contractors. Of course, it is very important for the successful completion of the project with quality as well as with a success with a quantity manner. So then registration of the contractors. So the contractor must get himself registered in the department or government, or for government contractors for which he is interested to take up the work. See, first he has to register and he has to take the license from the competent authority. So normally we will take the permission from the corporation first. So then whether what kind of work you are going to execute, what kind of background you have. Again, nowadays we have different categories are available. Based on the categories, they are giving the contractor certificate, and what kind of work you are executing, that details also they are giving it. So government contractors are entitled to do government jobs if awarded. Of course, if it is a government is awarded, they are allowed to do it. So contractors are classified according to the registration and the registration fee, and depending on this, they can undertake the works up to certain amount. Once they have given the permissions, they are allowed to do this contracting process. To get the contractor to be registered under certain class, he is to apply to the competent authority. Of course, he has to apply it. So the application should consist the following documents. When is going to apply for contracting process or contracting license, so the following information should be there in that form. So the first is the income certificate, that is one, and the IT return certificate, that is required. Work certificates for all the works performed during the last 3 years and those in progress. Suppose if you are doing any works, so what kind of work you have executed last 3 years performance is how much you're going to, how much completed, how much progress is there, if there progress, what is the percentage. They will ask all the quality aspects also as well as the quantity aspects also. Then the solvency certificate for an appropriate amount. The solvency certificate will tells you about the background of that contractor. See in what stage of contractor he is, how much he is having the money balance in his house, what is his economical background. That will give you the solvency certificate. That has to be made with the competent authority only. So then attested copy of a deed of partnership and the power of attorney of the stamp paper if it is needed. Sometimes they will ask you what is your property, in that property who are all there and how many members are there. Suppose if you are if you are failed to execute that work, or if the money is already sanctioned, then how that can be recovered with a competent authority. So then normally, on the stamp paper, so they will ask all these things and you have to give it. And in the bond, in the stamp papers, you have to give that these are the persons who are there in our family. If I'm not available, so the money can be withdrawn from these accounts. That can be furnished in that documents. Undertaking for the employment of the class 1 or the class staff. So based on the class 1 staff or the class 2 staff, means whether you are class 1 contractor or class 2 contractors, uh, undertaking has to be taken. So then application in duplicate with all the documents. So duplicate documents you have to submit it to then attached copies of all the partners if any. So normally you take the attestation of the gazetted officers, then you have to submit it. Nowadays, the self attestation is going on, and of course, they are giving in some of the court affidavits also, some of the certificates. So refund deposits. The money is the money is deposited under concerned head of the account. Of course, whatever the money is there, it is deposited under concerned head of the account. So they will be refunded to the contractor within 6 months after completion of the work, after satisfying the rectification details if any. Normally, why this 6 months will takes means after completion of the works. After completion of the works, they will go for third party inspection. That in that third party inspection, um, the person who is apart from the contractor or the engineer will come and verify the details in terms of quality as well as the quantity. Then if they are unable to complete, uh, they will come and they will verify the details on the ground itself. So then they will submit the report to the competent authority saying that whether the quality is good or not. If the quality is good, then what kind of things has to be made, or if the quality is not good, what that can be improved. And directly it will go to the competent authority. Then competent authority has to decide that whether the money has to be given or not. If the third party inspection is not proper, if they have remarked some of the things, then has to be rectified. Of course, it is left to the decision of the competent authority whether to give the approve the money or whether not to give the money for a certain works which is specified. So then it will take some time, it will take some process for successful completion of the works. Even why they will make the payment even after 6 months, at least for the 6 months, the whatever the work is there, that has to be maintained properly, or that has to be no complaints from the site or no complaints from the roads. If the contractor is executed the road work, at least that road has to come for minimum 6 months. At least in that period, no complaint should come from the user who is using that roads. So then opening of a tender. All the tenders should be sealed and submitted to the respective officer before the time and the date as mentioned in the tender note. uh, of course, should be sealed and it is submitted to the respective officers. That has to be submitted. Then at the described date, time and place, all the received tenders will be opened in the presence of intending tenderers or their authorized agents. Normally, if it is a government tender, then normally two expert committee members it will be there, and two expert committee members, then one member from the in front of the contractors, and one more in front of that um, um, the the tender, or what we can call it as the company persons, it will be there. Apart from that, two expert members will be there. So in that, they will open it. So then they will see that what kind of things they have mentioned, whether it is a proper manner or not. Then if it is in the proper manner, they will proceed further. Otherwise, if it is not, the tender is not in the proper manner, they will reject the application. The rates at the described date, time, place of all received tenders will be open in the presence of intending tenderers and their authorized agents. The rates quoted by the various tenders shall be read by the officer. That is, officer means the company person. Then scrutiny of the tender. After the tender have been opened, a comparative statement is prepared in the office by tender opening authority and signed by him. Normally, once the tender is opened, comparative statement is made. This is very important. Why? Because uh, when you are comparing the statements, for example, if four members are applying for the tendering process, then why this tender has been rejected, you have to say all those things. When you made the comparative statement only, you will come to know that these are the drawbacks, or these are the plus point in this tendering process. So made the comparative statement before proceeding it. Then whether to accept, whether to reject, or whether to hold it, that the decision left to the officer. So the first uh, uh, what is a comparative statement should be made, and uh, always it is given to the lowest tender who has quoted it. But it is not so. Sometimes the lowest tender cannot be given, because most of the time, um, for example, if one concrete road work is going on, so in that concrete work, assume that minimum it requires 1 crores to complete the road at with some quality of suppose if he has quoted for 50 lakhs, then with that 50 lakhs he cannot given them, because it is not possible to complete the work even for 1 crore. But how he has claiming at 50 lakhs, so then that cannot be given to that person, um, because it cannot be completed with uh, with the quality what the authority expected. So in that case, what they will do is that they will prepare the comparative statement. In that comparative statement, um, I already said that the tender document should consist of many of the things that we already discussed. So in in all those information, like what kind of material the first person he is using, here what kind of material he is using, what is the quality of that material, then what is the resources, how he is bringing, what kind of equipment he has. He will compare all four members who has applied. Then they will see that where the first contractor is lying, where the second contractor is lying, why he has claimed the lesser quoted, why he has quoted high. So based on the experience and based on the previous work he has executed, they will see all those things, then they will execute it. But normally it will go to the lower quotation or the lower tendering process, but it may not go for most of the time. Verify whether the contractor has agreed all the tendering conditions or not. Acceptance of a tender. Based on the comparative statement, usually the lowest tender is accepted. While accepting this tender, the tender accepting authority shall satisfy the following regarding with the tenderers. Of course, sometimes the financial capacity of each tenderer, then the capacity to do the work, past record of the contractor, such as experience, procurement of the labors, etc. These are has to be compared. Sometimes even if he quote for lowest quotation, if he is unable to bring the contractor, then for that contractor they won't give any provision to um, accept the tender, and it will be rejected for that person. So whenever this is very important, if you are rejecting the lowest quotation, then make sure that you have to give solid reasons. That is very important, because when you are rejecting the lowest tender, as per the government norms, the things will go to the lowest tender itself. But you are rejecting that. If you are rejecting that tenders, then normally you have to give the valid reasons um, for why you are rejected that lowest quotation tender. So valid reason: a tender than other the lowest quotation accepted. The fact is to be recorded with the full reasons. A report on this to be submitted to the next higher authority. A suitable reason is also mentioned in the comparative statement. The tender accepting authority himself has to sign the comparative statement and record his remarks. I already said that during the tender opening process, many of the peoples will be there. Two expert committee members it will be there. One from the contractor side, one from the company side. It will be there. So in that cases, normally what will happen is that they have to sign why they are rejecting this lowest quotation. Then two tenders have quoted the same lowest rate. Then they have to compare it, its history and its background and all those things. Then you have to award it. When all the tenders have quoted abnormally high rates, then rejected. Sometimes only one tender may respond to the tender call. Sometimes what will happen is that if they are equally performing good, sometimes the first come first serve basis they will do it. They will give some deadlines. Those will come and do say, I'll execute this work. They will give that work and they will successfully complete that work. Then contract. What is this contract? For a contract to be valid, there must be an offer from a owner in the form of a tender notice to get some specified work to be executed, and there must be an acceptance from a contractor to execute work. Both the offer and the acceptance must be defined and legal. For a contractor to be valid, there must be an offer from an owner in the form of tender notice. Of course, if it is a contract to be valid, there must be an offer from a owner in the form of tender notice to get the specified work to be executed with a specified time. Contract documents. When the tender of the contractor is accepted, an agreement between the contractor and the owner takes place, and the documents defining the rights and obligations of the owner and the contractor has attached to the agreement bond, and this is called a contract document. What is this contract document? And this contract document is going to happen between the owner and the contractor. So then how we are going to conduct it? What are the strategies when you are going to complete it? Suppose if I am not going to complete this work within a time, then you have to give this much security deposits, or the money cannot be fully sanctioned. So in that way it is an agreement uh, in terms of the quality aspects as well as the quantity aspects, and for the successful completion of the this contract work. Each page of the contract document bears the signature of the contractor and the accepting authority, and any correction if it is there, it has to be initiated. So each of those agreement, it should be bound by the first the contractor, and the second one is the owner. Both signs should be there in each of the pages. So then the contract document must contains title page, name of the work, name of the owner, name of the contractor, uh, contract agreement number, the contents, etc. So it also consists of the index page. In that index page, it contains of an agreement with reference, pages. So then tender notice, I already explained that what the tender notice consists of. So this tender notice tells about the brief description of the work, estimated cost of the work, date and time of receiving tender, amount of EMD, that is earnest money deposit, and the security deposit details, the time of completion, etc. That we already defined it, what is the tender notice and what this tender notice consists of. So then tender form, that also we discussed it. What is this tender form? This tender form is used for billing the quantities, the contractor's rate, total cost of the work, the time of completion, amount of security deposit, etc. That has to be mentioned in the tender form also. That is a tender notice, this is a tender form. Then schedule of issue of materials. So a list of materials which you are procuring issued by the owner or the department to the contractor with the rates and the place of issue, where you are going to issue, the place of issue you have to tell. Then drawing has to be completed. I already said what kind, whether it is a structural drawing or whether it is just a layout of the plan, that has to be supplied um, 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 during the tendering process. So then complete set of drawings that includes a plan, elevation, sections, detailed drawings, etc. All fully dimensions and all should be given with the dimensions, and always our drawing should be self explanatory. That's very important. Normally when you are, if they see the drawings, they should be able to see that okay, this is what the plan, this is what the section, then it has to move in this directions. And the last one is specifications, the detailed specifications and general specifications that has to be given in the tendered documents. I already given that detailed specification and detailed general specifications. So normally this general specifications includes the class and the type of work and the quality of the materials. So detailed specifications includes detailed description of each items of the work, including the materials and methods to be used, along with the quality of the work, workmanship is required. So then the special conditions, like depending upon the nature of the works, uh, taxes and the loyalties included in the rates, labors. See, normally what will happen is that suppose if you are executing this work after 2 months, then there is a lot of variations in the season to season, then that has to be included. Suppose if you are going to execute in some of the seasons, then some of the variations in the rates, labor camp, labor amenities, that has to be included in some of the special cases. Suppose compensation to the labors during the accident if this happen, so that is all has to be entered in the that tender document. And deed of pledge, that is a pledge, always the contractor pledge, it will be there, the contractor pledge as well as the company pledge, that has to be included in that form. So then the classification of the contracts. So the many types of contracts are there. So the first one is lump sum contract, cost plus a fixed percentage contract, cost plus a fixed fee contract, percentage rate contract, item rate contract, turnkey contract, cost plus slide scale of fees, negotiable or negotiated contracts. So these are the different types of contracts are available based on the purpose where it has to be served, based on the application where you are going to make it, and based on the type of the contractor who is applying it. So in all those considering the aspects and where you are applying it, the nature of the work, so then these are the classification of the contracts. Maybe this all type of contracts we will discuss this in the next class. That is um, the lump sum contract, and of course most of the time the first and the second normally we will use it as a contract